Eve, today we will discuss everything to do, as usual, with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Load up for discussion today. We have MicroStrategy seeking share increase to buy billions more of Bitcoin, which is great Christmas Eve news. YouTube alternative streaming platform Rumble receives $775 million investment from Tether. The stock rips 94% higher. I thought that was huge news. It actually was reported a couple of days ago, but came across my attention. Definitely wanted to discuss that. Tether expanding its investment portfolio, and Virtual's AI agents market cap hit $1 billion as the top agents hit all-time highs. Incredible strength in the AI agent market, especially versus the rest of the market, which has been a little bit depressed recently. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, plus general discussion on market rotations and where liquidity is flowing. So stay tuned for that. We've got Rahim in the co-host seats today. We're ready to go for it. Final show of the year, allegedly. That is what we said. We are meant to be taking a break until January the 6th. We'll see if that pans out. But before we do that, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very, very risky. We don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Rahim, welcome back. Happy Christmas Eve. Merry Apemas, as it appears to say on your Christmas jumper. If you're watching us on video, on X video, or on YouTube, as usual, how are you doing? How are things with you, my friend?
So far, so good. GM, everybody. Exciting times, exciting end of the year. Good to see kind of like the rest of the market do well. Yeah, I'm excited to. I usually get into like a very reflective kind of like a mentality end of year. So I think it's been interesting to Web3, IRL. Yeah, I'm excited.
So two things. I want to touch on the reflective thing first, but I just want you to share your Christmas jumper. You've got the Merry Apemas one. When did you get this one? This is pretty cool.
So
and I love how
actually got this.
basically Web3 culture seeped into everything, whether it's Christmas or anything else.
Yeah,
Where did
I
this one
got
come
this
from?
last year. There is this guy Baron from the Bored Ape community. He made these like last year, so I purchased it from it. It's kind of nice. I wear it. I have a Christmas dinner tonight, so I'll be wearing it over there as well.
I love it. Although my camera angle is slightly different, the only Christmas jumper that I've had for like the last 10 years is this one jumper that I'm wearing. I'm trying to pull it up so people can see. It says, "This is as Christmassy." And then the final bit, let's see if I can get it on screen.
It seems very you, to be honest. It seems very.
This is as Christmassy as it gets. That's it. That's all there is to the jumper. It's a red jumper. 10 years down, same Christmas message from me. Merry Christmas, guys. Legendary, I sent you the Christmas jumper memo. Seems to have missed you.
GM, Merry Christmas. Yeah, I don't have one. You know, I was just saying before the show, Rahim has the Dubai version of positivity and happiness on a sweater. You have the British sarcastic one, and the Austrian one doesn't even have a sweater. So I kind of love this this trilogy of sweaters or non-Christmas sweaters.
I like it. I like it. Rahim, you just said about like getting reflective. Before we get into the main headlines, as usual, guys, we've got a stacked show. We're going to be talking all the things that we do like normal, everything to do with the crypto market, the AI agent market. Also just noticed pudgy penguins are ripping, by the way, up 30% in the last 24 hours. So we'll touch on that briefly as well. But you just mentioned like getting more reflective this time of year. I am definitely someone who likes to do resolutions, and I know loads of people who hate doing resolutions because they say like, well, you know, you can just do it any time of the year. If you want to do something, just do it, which I actually agree with as well in principle. Like, obviously, if you want to make a change, you genuinely can do that whenever you want. But I just think it's a nice period of time to try to do that. Be curious for your thoughts there, and also want to throw that kind of out there to Legendary.
No, I'm with you. I kind of do resolutions as well. I feel like in general, December for me ends up being very reflective because I have a lot of friends who I grew up with. They end up coming back to Dubai to visit their family, whoever like moved across. So it's kind of nice to catch up with everyone once a year, kind of know what's happening. So I think it kind of puts me in the mood of being reflective, catching up with like people from like last year. But yeah, I usually get like very reflective. I usually like to stay home on New Year's Eve as well. I think in Dubai in general, it's become like too capitalistic. Everything is like ridiculously expensive. So I'm not about that life. So yeah, like one of the resolutions I have for next year is to like really, it sounds very adulty and very cliche, but I really want to organize basic aspects of my life. Like I feel like in 2024, a lot of things went like this. And I think when you have exponential growth in some ways, you're not prepared to have systems or things in place that
Yeah.
kind of, you're like, okay, how do I maneuver this? Like I'm super grateful. I think this year is the most I've ever traveled, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to travel the same amount next year. So I think like really putting in systems in place and sticking to it. So yeah, especially managing my socials. I really need to figure out managing my Telegram, WhatsApp, DMs. So yeah, and like focus a bit on like my health, music, IRL friends, and yeah, kind of like slow down life.
I love it. I completely empathize with that point about like things growing in a individual growth as part of a growing market, and then you feel. I think the right thing to do is to say yes to things, right? Like be a yes man, which means yes, you are saying to things. Do you want to get added to the Telegram chat? Yes. Do you want to come to this festival somewhere? Yes. Like when you're trying to establish yourself and when you're trying to grow, the right answer to the question is yes. And then I think you're right, which is say yes and deal with the organization after, once you've kind of explored in different directions. I think that's a very, very common thing, or a common feeling that a lot of people will be feeling at the moment. So maybe in 2025, you can let us know what systems you put in place to help.
I think just on that point, I think that's a very crucial point. And I think that's been one of the most challenging thing for myself is that exact thing. When I meet someone or having a conversation with someone, figuring out how much value this brings to me compared to how much value it brings to them, and deciding how much time I want to allocate to that is something that I really need to figure out. So I resonate with what you said a lot.
I like it. Legendary. Maybe a little reflection from you before we get into the main headlines and normal discussion.
Yeah, Rahim and I realized we're pretty similar in many ways, and I very much share the sentiment of being reflective towards the end of the year. I'm not the biggest fan of New Year's resolutions because I feel like, whenever you get a chance to take a break and reflect and want to adapt, just do that basically. But I also appreciate that end of the year is the perfect time to have this self-reflection, to have those resolutions. So for some people, it just works better in that way. And I very much also resonate with that thought of having traveled quite a lot this year. I think I've been on 25, 28-ish flights, which was, I'm extremely grateful for having this like opportunity to see so much of the world and meet so many people across the globe. But also it basically meant I didn't really have that much of a routine, that much of a daily life, which is something that I do wish to come back to in 2025.
Yeah, 28 is a lot. And I felt like you were planning to do more and like sometimes didn't get to the places that you had planned to go. So yeah, like if looking back, I haven't even had a chance to reflect on how many places I've been or those types of things. But five days left before the resolution. So I'm going to be spending some time the next few days. As you guys have said, I just think it's a great opportunity. I know that you can do it any time of the year, but it feels like a natural time to be able to actually put some time into it. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the next, over the next few days. But look, guys, let's get into the main headlines for today. We've got a packed show. We're going to be talking MicroStrategy, Rumble's $775 million investment by Tether. That's pretty significant. Not just from the crypto perspective, right? From the media perspective. I actually listened to the interview with the founder and David Portnoy. It was a 30-minute short interview. Some interesting details, which I'll break down in a bit. Also, we'll be talking AI agents. So let's start with the price action as usual, guys, starting with the majors. We've got Bitcoin down 1% or so, back to 94K. ETH's actually up a couple of percent to 3.4K, which is nice to see. Solana's also up, which is also nice to see, up 5% to around $192. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge up a couple of percent to 32 cents. SHIB the same. Pepe the same. Pudgy Penguins, I did just say, up 30% to, I think it's around 3.1, 3.2 billion FTV at the moment. That's the big winner. Interestingly, just for some context, guys, that's flipped WIF. So WIF is also up 5% to almost $2, but PENGU has flipped WIF, which I think it's just an interesting comparison, right? Given that WIF was like the main culture coin, the main animal coin of the cycle so far, at least. We've also got Mogs up 5%. Fartcoin is up 30%. Can't kill the fart. AI16Z is also up 16% as AI has kind of bounced back pretty strongly. SPX, Murad's coin, is up 20% too. A lot of green, to be honest, across the board. Giga's up 25%. Goat's up 6%, albeit very far down off its highs. It's still only at 50 cents. AIXBT, new all-time high, around 33 cents, up 7%. Got to think AIXBT is just brilliant. Like it's actually a legit, interesting, useful source of information. I think this is a 10x for me, although I bought not in a lot of size, so not a huge win, but I think it is a 10x, and it's the one that I keep going back and thinking about. Just like, do I need to sell here? Not really. Still like it's just a great follow on Twitter. I don't know where that goes, but maybe that's something I'll reflect on over the next 5 days too. So a lot of green on the meme coin side. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have what do we have? We've got MicroStrategy seeking share increase by billions for more Bitcoin purchases. Legendary is going to break the details down in just a little bit. We've got the YouTube alternative streaming platform Rumble receiving $775 million of investment from Tether, and the stock gripped 95% as a consequence. And as I said, Virtual's AI agent market caps hit $1 billion as top agents hit all-time highs. That's everything from the headline side. Legendary, what's going on the NFT side as we roll into Christmas?
Absolutely. Let's take a quick look, starting with Pudgy Penguins, basically unchanged from yesterday, sitting at an 18.27 ETH floor. Bored Apes down another 2.6%, 16.9 ETH floor for them, falling under that 17 ETH threshold. Azuki's on the flip side having a very green day, up 9% over the last 24 hours, the 12.12 ETH floor. I think we also saw, you had it in the snapshot, a spirit sale, a beautiful spirit selling. Doodles down 4%, 6.19 ETH floor for them, still up massively over the last 7 days, still up 38%. And last but not least, the collection we didn't check in quite some time, which is Mochaverse, up 13.7% over the last 24 hours, up 80% over the last 7 days, and sitting at a 3.8 ETH floor.
Damn. Really significant. I did notice that run up yesterday as well. I think we reported on Jirasan instead, which was up like 30-40% in the last 24 hours. But Mochaverse maybe different to the others because Mocha token's actually out. It's out there in the universe, and I think people are finding staking that token to be quite valuable, whereas the majority of the other NFTs which are running are ones which are expecting a token. So Mochaverse looking very, very strong, obviously backed by Animoca, like their flagship NFT project. So seeing some strength there. Getting into the rest of the Web3 roundup before we get into a bigger discussion today on the main headlines. Lots of interesting things here. You definitely need to take a note if you've been an active participant in the space. First, Solana NFT marketplace Tensor released their airdrop checker for season 4 claim. So obviously Tensor is the main NFT marketplace for Solana NFTs. If you've been participating there to any degree, you definitely want to go check out whether you are eligible for more tokens, because it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good claim for people in the past. Depends whether you've been active there anymore, since Solana NFT activities kind of dropped off recently. $7 million sent by Degens to AI agent managed wallet to create an AI agent launchpad. But now the creator who shared the details on X, the account is now suspended. This was an interesting piece of news where someone was trying to do a crowd raise to send directly to an AI agent managed wallet to create an AI launchpad. But the person who now shared those details, the account is deleted. It's not deleted, it's suspended. So not sure what the next information there is. $7 million got sent really, really quickly as part of this pre-sale, which is pretty insane. Usual announces a $10 million Series A funding round led by Binance Labs to build the foundation for stablecoin Renaissance. The differentiating factor here is I think this stablecoin is backed by RWAs instead of some of the other stuff you might traditionally have. It says Usual issues a novel stablecoin collateralized by RWAs, combining the security of real assets with the composability and liquidity of DeFi. I think all of the time with this type of stuff, the strength of the asset will depend on what is backing it. So I think you want to take a closer look at specifically what is being collateralized there for you to take confidence in it or not. And then finally, when I reported this, PENGU was up 17% to 2.8 billion. You know, this is 1 hour later. PENGU's actually up 30% now to, I think, 3.1, 3.2 billion. And the interesting statistic that Spencer Ventures shared earlier was that the claim number, the number of tokens claimed, had approached 70%. And I think by people's estimates, people are starting to think, well, look, we're around 70% of all tokens claimed, maybe 30%, maybe will never be claimed because for whatever reason, they had a lot of people eligible, and maybe some of those will almost certainly be dead wallets. And I think we're getting into that territory now where people will think that some of these are dead wallets. So therefore the price starts to move up. That is the Web3 Roundup. We're going to talk about the big headlines in a second. We also got a cool sponsored segment in just a moment. But Legendary, before we get there, anything catching your attention from the Roundup part that is not the main headlines today?
Definitely the PENGU news or the PENGU price action, because I thought a bit about it. It's structurally different from the dormant wallets for PENGU are structurally different to dormant wallets for an asset like BTC. Because with BTC, you would always have the case that there might be some potential whale waking up with a 7-year-old wallet and just dumping a shit ton of BTC on the market. Like that's always a looming thought. But with PENGU, those non-PENGU ecosystem related wallets don't really have a large claim on an individual basis. Like altogether, the claim is significant. But even if like a couple hundred wallets, couple thousand wallets wake up and claim and immediately dump, that's like not really impactful on the price because there's like there's not a non-PENGU wallet that is sitting on a couple million, 10, 20 million in PENGU and just waiting to wake up and dump. And I think that is significant. And I think this is why probably the market was looking at that, a week to see who's claiming, who's not claiming, and kind of trying to estimate that amount of dead wallets and that amount of sell pressure, and maybe reaching that conclusion that the airdrop sell pressure for now, at least from the unclaimed wallets, seems to have subsided.
Yeah, I think people were definitely making that calculation for sure. For sure. I definitely think that's been what's going on. And I think a lot of people jumped the gun because people were so excited about PENGU coming out. And, traditionally, because, we're kind of products of our own behavior and just products of our own environment. And in our environment, it's not always the case. How would we put this? I don't think there's ever been a case where this many wallets have been eligible for something. Like, I don't think there's ever been someone so ambitious to try to get this many wallets eligible. And so usually you can get a pretty decent sense of, the wallets are majority claimed, like maybe even on the day or on the day after. And, that shows in the price action because things dip and then they kind of turn around like relatively quickly. If they're going to turn around, they turn around relatively quickly. If not, they just keep going down and they never come back.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's just a more extensive process with people checking like multiple Solana wallets, multiple ETH wallets. I haven't claimed all of mine from some of the other wallets. I claimed my main one and I haven't claimed all the other stuff yet. So, I'm still part of that 30% non-claimed because there are so many other wallets that could have had some allocation. So I think this was a different thing and people jumped the gun because that's what you can usually do. But in this case, you had to wait a bit longer for it to bottom out and then it could start this ascent. Rahim, I know you think about PENGU a lot. I think you are still a holder, you're holding. And what's your thought on it, on the whole PENGU?
This reminds me of exactly what was happening with the Solana phone and Bonk when it was airdropped. You had like all these people finding a couple of $100 weeks and months into it. And I think you're absolutely right. You don't have a lot of sell pressure to what Legendary said. I actually had a friend of mine who I've onboarded by sending him some WIF or something earlier this year. And he told me that he had some PENGU and he's like, oh, it's just like $120, $130. He's like, I'm not going to sell it. I might as well watch it go 10x. That's literally like the words he said. So I think that ends up happening a lot. And I feel like this is exactly what happened with Bonk. So I feel like we're seeing something very similar play out. I think everyone's kind of looking at these statistics. I was speaking to an LP yesterday, and they were talking about, they've been discussing of how many people have claimed in to when they start like really buying in size, when he in person would start buying in size. And they were talking about the same thing. They've been like eyeing how much have claimed, how many are still waiting. So I think that period kind of prolonged more than usual. but I think we see it like rally decently as we go forward.
Just yeah. So was there any insight into what number? Because I mean, I guess this is a relevant metric for whether it's this airdrop or any other airdrop, and I think people would be interested to know what do you guys think? Do you think 70% is a good point to start to think, well, we must be bottoming out now? Do you think it should be 80, 90? I assume people never get to 100. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
I think 75, 80% is, I think even 70 is pretty good, to be honest. Now you're talking about like thousands. I'm sure there are like thousands of wallets that haven't claimed. Like on a daily basis, you're seeing about 5,000 to 6,000 wallets get added. Of course, not taking into account how many are like new buyers, but that's a significant amount. If you compare the amount of new users you have on WIF or Pepe, Pepe has like 1,000 holders joining in every single day. And like Pepe is at like 3x the market cap. It obviously is like a lot more established. So I think like at this point, everyone who's like heavily sized in, had heavy allocations, to Legendary's point, I just don't think there are people sitting out there who haven't claimed, who are sitting with like 6-7 figures on it. So I think it's a pretty safe bet in some ways, you know.
Plus the claims are expiring. I think it was 88 days after the TG that the claims are expiring.
However, I assume, again, this is not an area of expertise, but I know a lot of people are waiting for next year to claim it because of tax reasons in the US.
Yes,
I believe that would
that's
be a
true.
metric to keep an eye out.
Yeah, that's
But
very
other
good.
than
This is what
Yeah.
hyped it so beautifully, right? With the airdrop launching at such a low value to not have like a pending tax burden for jurisdictions like the US when you, to my knowledge, become taxable when you claim the thing.
Yeah, that's really smart. Very, very smart from them. Okay, glad we spoke about that. I mean, just to one final reflection on the chart, so people can see. Just going to share it on screen for the people who are watching in. It's pretty aggressive move up, 30% in the last 24 hours. That is now, 3.16 billion. Just flipped whiff. So good luck to the PENGU over the holidays. Hope it keeps moving higher. We are, I think, all holders. So yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for the PENGU. We're going to get into the main conversations in a little bit on MicroStrategy. Legendary is doing that breakdown. We're going to talk about AI agents, and we've got some stuff coming on Rumble's the Tether investment into Rumble that was $775 million. We'll break all that down in just a little bit. But before we get there today, I want to get into our new Polkadot explorations segment. Hydration is a DeFi protocol. Hydration is a DeFi protocol on Polkadot with $149 million trading volume and $74 million cross-chain volume over the last 30 days. It innovates in the way it pools liquidity in its Omni pool and by how it saves you money by splitting trades. That is what we'll break down in this segment. And fortunately, this segment is brought to you by Polkadot, a more scalable and interoperable blockchain network created by many of the brightest minds in blockchain and all governed by the DOT community and token, which is the 21st largest coin in crypto. So let's get into Hydration, which Legendary had actually used many years ago when it went by a different name. Hydration is a DeFi protocol on Polkadot with $149 million trading volume and $74 million cross-chain volume over the last 30 days. The cross-chain feature also serves as a bridge from ETH to Hydration for users coming from Ethereum. The main USP for Hydration as a DEX is how liquidity is pooled. So traditional platforms like Uniswap have liquidity pools for every asset pair like ETH/USDC or USDC AIXBT. Hydration's innovation on that model is the so-called Omni pool. Instead of creating liquidity pools for every asset pair, every trade is routed through H2O, a non-tradable token that reflects the current value of the Omni pool. This makes trading more efficient and helps reduce impermanent loss. When it comes to the actual trading, there is one feature in particular that stands out, and that is called the split trade. If you want to swap a larger amount of a token, that swap might have a significant price impact and you'll receive less money. Say you want to swap 100 ETH to USDC and ETH trades at 3,300, you'd expect to receive 330K USDC. However, if the liquidity is not sufficient and there's a 3% price impact, you'd only receive 320K instead and lose out on 10K. Here's where the split trade feature comes in. Instead of filling your order in one go, the split trade breaks it up in smaller chunks and executes them over a set period of time. Legendary, do you want to show us how that feature works?
Absolutely. Let's quickly take a look. Need to use larger numbers here for the split trade feature to make sense and to demonstrate the difference. Let's assume we want to swap 100K USDC to DOT. You can obviously execute that as a single trade, and the equivalent that you would receive, the 13.58K DOT, would equal 98.5K USD. However, you can also click here and choose to go with the split trade feature, which would basically, as you said, split it in a couple of chunks and then execute the trade over the next 18 minutes. And you would end up with 1.2K USD more of Polkadot than going via a single trade. And if you bump up those numbers further, say you want to swap 1 million, you go to split trade. This is where the page would suggest, this is where Hydration would suggest, might be too large for an efficient split trade execution. You can go to the DCA page instead, where you then would be able to choose, just like a typical DCA trading platform, over what period of time you want to DCA into the asset of your choice. Back to you, Bcheck. What other features is Hydration currently working on?
Like it. So the next feature that Hydration is working on is Borrow, which will also be available for EVM users. Borrow is an Aave v3 fork deployed on Hydration's EVM, but all users can interact with the feature regardless of whether they're using an EVM or substrate-based wallet. So once that is up and running, Hydration will also launch Holler, its over-collateralized stablecoin based off of Aave's Go. To sum it up, if you're new to Polkadot and onboarding from ETH, Hydration is a good starting point to begin trading. So shout out to Polkadot, who are sponsoring this segment, and us more generally to explore their ecosystem. So we look forward to further explorations as we go into the new year. Let's get into the main headlines now. Legendary, we said
1 second before we go into the headlines. Need to go to Funky after that segment. Can't skip him on this, and then go into the first headline. Funky, the stage is yours.
Just real quick, I was actually tweaking when you guys started talking about Polkadot and the ecosystem. So, and Hydration is an incredible DEX because of a lot of the features that you guys covered. So, just wanted to say thank you for even giving them some love. This is something that I use inside the ecosystem, and there's a really cool way where you can actually farm. If you look at some of the rewards, because it is single-sided liquidity provision, you don't have to worry about IL. We don't talk into the reasons why, but it's just a really unique DEX solution with what they've constructed, the Omnipool underneath all that, because it doesn't use smart contracts, it uses pallets from the Polkadot framework. But yeah, really cool stuff. Thank you guys for giving a shout out to them.
Love it, man. Maybe that will be our next exploration, how to get some of those rewards. Appreciate you, Funky. We'll update you on that as we go. Hopefully you can provide some insight further. Look, let's get into the main headlines today. Legendary, you said you were going to take us through some of this MicroStrategy news. Then we've got some of the other big news too. What have we got?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting one. So MicroStrategy, the headline, seeks to increase its shares by billions for more Bitcoin purchases. So let's quickly dive into what they're exactly seeking to, what that means. They want to increase common shares by 10 billion, preferred shares by 1 billion. That is from 330 million shares to 10.33 billion. And the increase of preferred shares from 5 mil to 1.005 billion. One caveat to say with that is that even if you get the authorization, this is something that needs to be voted on by the shareholders. It would not necessarily mean that all those shares would be issued like immediately, because even as of right now, MicroStrategy is authorized to issue more shares than they currently have issued. But this is obviously a significant increase to the cap, and that is in line with the 21-21 plan, which is for MicroStrategy over the next 3 years to purchase 42 billion worth of Bitcoin. And by having this increase in stocks, if that goes through, the vote will happen at some point at one of the meetings in 2025. It's not determined yet when that will be exactly. That would give them a lot more flexibility on the one hand. On the other hand, if they were really to increase the share amount that much, which again, I don't think is the plan here, but they could then theoretically do that. There's a couple more caveats to that process. Someone pointed it out in a comment by Marty Party, who I'm currently sharing on screen, that if you were to go with all the shares, you could dilute the MicroStrategy price so far that you make it a $1 stock that retail can fully ape that. Again, I don't necessarily think that this is the plan here, but it is a massive proposed increase in the share number, and we definitely will have to wait and see to get some more of the details of what the plan with that increase and implementation of that increase, in case it even were voted through by the shareholders, would look like.
Okay. Excellent breakdown on what's happening most immediately. What are you making of the thing that I observed yesterday or the day before is like, look, there seems to be this exceptionally confident, not necessarily infinite bid from Saylor and MicroStrategy, but certainly confident continued buying. But the commentary yesterday did seem to be, or the last couple of days has seemed to be two things. One, the bid is decreasing. Like obviously the price is higher and it doesn't seem like we're ripping much higher, at least for the moment. So the bid is decreasing. Like, is that a question of maybe a bit of a lack of confidence? And then the second thing, the commentary I saw was, when has anyone ever been, I think this might have been Keyboard Monkey. Like, when has anyone ever been rewarded by top blasting the asset, any asset in like crazy size in this like kind of in this very relentless way? That was like the two more negative, more question marks about this kind of behavior. Would be curious to hear your thoughts, Ledge, and then Rahim, if you have any thoughts on it as well, we'll come to you.
Yeah, Keyboard Monkey was pretty outspoken about that. He also posted that the sailors sinned way too much, and now we all have to suffer because of it. I think it's in particular the last purchase that was at 106K average price for the Bitcoin, that now is a like for the first time in a couple of months a significant discrepancy to the current spot price of BTC, with BTC obviously being down to 94, 95K, where it's been like fluctuating for the last couple of days. So maybe that, and then this like maybe that 10K or 9K price discrepancy is the reason why we've seen the share price correct down a bit. But I think it's also important to zoom out, because the shares are still up 450% over the past year.
That is a reasonable point. Rahim, any final reflections on Bitcoin or anything to do with that? Or should we move on to Rumble?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, in some ways, we are so close to getting Trump into power, right? Like, you would, like, I don't want to wear like a tinfoil hat, but I'm assuming there are people on the top that are kind of looking at this like a slight sell the news event happening, because it seems like you have like Gary Gensler. When is he? Isn't he supposed to leave in like few weeks as well? So I just feel like, looking at all the catalysts, I feel like in the last 2-3 days, the Bitcoin ETFs also slightly went down. So I wonder if there's like a big overarching conversation that's happening behind that's also leading to this decrease slightly for the time period, you know?
I mean, look, I think one of the things that must have been happening, at least in part, is that the basis trade is not as attractive now as it might have been. Like, the rates in crypto over the last month for lending have been extraordinary. And obviously in that environment, the basis trade becomes more attractive, whereas it's kind of just settled down. Like, it's still good. Like, you could still get 10% on USDC. Basically, you know, on Aave, in different places as well. Athena's staked USDE rate, I think it settled to around 12%. Went as crazy as 30% like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So, you know, it could just be people settling in a little bit, knowing that that was a bit overheated. And, you know, if you're running the basis trade, maybe you're coming out of it. I don't know 100%, but let's see how we go. Good to see. Well, good to have that information presented. It doesn't look like Saylor's going to stop either way, so we will continue to report on it as he does. Let's get into the next headline, which I think is super interesting, obviously, as a media producer. This is the news that was actually, okay, so this news, when did it go out? 23rd. So, okay, so this article was written yesterday, but I think this might have gone through a few days before. Basically, huge headline: Rumble, the YouTube alternative video streaming platform that has become popular. They always like to say this one on traditional media, that has become popular in right-wing circles, said on Friday that it has secured $775 million investment from cryptocurrency company Tether. Following the news, Rumble shares skyrocketed up almost 94% on Monday. Tether's investment will see it purchase more than $103 million of shares at $7.50. Rumble said it will use $250 million to support the platform's growth and the rest to fund a self-tender offer for 70 million Class A shares. I actually watched the interview with the Rumble founder, with David Portnoy, this morning. It was 30 minutes long, or 25 minutes, 30 minutes long. A couple of really interesting details. Tether approached Rumble 1 month ago. 1 month ago, this company approached them to get this deal done, and they got it done in 30 days to execute a $775 million deal. That is outrageous. Like, just as a headline kind of concept for how to get deals done, it is not usually possible. I'm speaking as a former lawyer, as it's just insane. And the second interesting point, or maybe there's a few more, I'll think about them as I go. Second interesting point is very much considered to be a strategic investment. And so it's not, the way that it worked was he basically, the founder went around to their investors. They were basically allowed to, they were asked, how much of your stock do you want to sell? Because Tether had told them, we want to buy as much as you can give us. Like, as much as you want to give us, we will buy. So he went to his investors and asked, like, well, how much do you want to sell? Because however much you want to sell, we'll be able to sell it. So a bunch of people sold, a bunch of people didn't sell. He couldn't find enough to sell to kind of get Tether happy. So then they did this secondary part of it, which is more like a raise style aspect. So they sold a bunch of existing shares, created a few more. And it's definitely viewed as a strategic investment. And the reason why I think it's a strategic investment, because the guy who's the Rumble founder, who was speaking quite eloquently on like the similarities in ethos between crypto and his company, which is broadly to say, it's like around the concept of freedom, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of movement of currencies. Like, all these things are tied together. They'd actually announced not long ago they were starting to put some money into Bitcoin as part of their treasury. And they additionally started to think, well, look, the reason why this is a strategic investment, it's not just we want to take your money and then you're going to leave us alone and we're going to go and do our own thing. No, it's like, you have USDT, that's what you own. We can see that as being a really important part of the future. So now let's build the future rails for payment for content creators around the world. So it's a bet on crypto, it's a bet on content creators and connecting those two people via stablecoins, and it's a bet on stablecoins. So, I always talk about stablecoins being one of the best businesses in the world. I am also super bullish on content creators and media and people like ourselves and other people in our industry and loads of other YouTubers who've come before us, completely flipping traditional media, because traditional media is so bad. Like, it's so appallingly bad. We will take over and be better and be the future, more kind of front-facing media. So it's a bet on all of those things. And so I just thought it was a super interesting deal, hyper relevant to crypto, hyper relevant to the future of media. I think those two things will intersect really, really well, because it's built upon the foundation of prioritizing freedom of expression, freedom of transactions. And therefore, I just thought it was super interesting. Legendary, any initial responses, thoughts, questions on that? What are you thinking? I'm just going to check if there's any other interesting details here.
Yeah, I find it very much interesting from the perspective of Tether. We talked about the company quite a lot and about some of the investments that they did, also going into the energy sector, having trades in oil. I think the first crude oil trade, which was also settled in Tether, occurred just either a couple of weeks or months ago. And now going for the media side, that is very, very interesting to see. And it's something that is basically an infinitely larger game than, say, layer 2 solutions are playing as well in our ecosystem, partnering up with also alternative blockchains, other L1s, et cetera, partnering up with media companies, partnering up with shows, podcasts to get that extra exposure. And obviously, Tether is playing in a completely different league from that. And they're like, look, we're either going to invest significantly into something, or we're going to buy the companies that we find interesting, and they, I think, from a strategic perspective, view this stablecoin proliferation at a way, way larger scale. And they're basically like, when we want to see something happening with stablecoins, we're just going to make a sizable bet in that industry. And I think there was also this recent news that came out on an interview. I don't know if it was Mark Andreessen talking to that or someone else. I have no idea. Probably going to miscite that. The source, however that is. The content was interesting, though. It was talking about SpaceX, and SpaceX also converting. Not SpaceX. What's the internet company again? Starlink converting some of the payments that they receive from a bit more unstable currencies into stables. I think in their case it was USDC though, and then basically just forwarding them. So even seeing obviously a bit more crypto-friendly companies like the whole Elon Musk ecosystem using that. And I think Tether is just basically buying or significantly investing in those industries where it wants to foster stablecoin adoption. That's very fascinating to observe.
Just think, people are getting so used to it. Like tipping creators are proliferating everywhere. YouTube's been going for years now. TikTok is going crazy. Who's going to own those payment rails? What's the easiest way? What's the most profitable way for everyone to run? Like, I think Chamath was even talking about this on the All In podcast. He was going on and on about stablecoins. It's clearly the way that people are going to want to be paid, connecting everyone globally in real time. It's so obvious that this is, I think, a super interesting partnership. Rahim, the question I want to ask you though, my only query about this is, look, Rumble, I've never been on Rumble. I've never watched anything on Rumble because it's not YouTube. This is the thing. Like, I agree with the ethos. I agree with this investment. I think it's good for both parties. I think it's an interesting thing to continue to build. How can you break, like, what would you advise? I know you do advice to various either Web3 companies, and whether that's to do with growth or marketing or strategy or whatever. How can they break the YouTube monopoly? It's not specifically a monopoly because we put our content on Spotify, we upload it thereafter, we put it on Apple Podcasts, we upload it thereafter. But how they're going to break this YouTube thing? Like, would people just go and produce on Rumble because they agree with the ethos, or do you feel like they have to be on YouTube still, otherwise they're not going to participate in the broader market?
This is actually a very good question you're asking, and I think a good example is I was reading some stats about Theo Von did like an interview with Timothée Chalamet recently about one of his movies coming out, and like the stats were around like how his interview with Theo ended up getting 8 to 10x of what Jimmy Fallon would get. And I think that's such a good metric to kind of observe, right? And I think, like, personally, I feel like people should really break it down, because I used to do a lot of commercial filmmaking and photography before Web3. I think COVID changed a lot how people consume content, a lot. Like back in the days, if you remember, people were obsessed with like Instagram feed aesthetics, like, everything has to be cohesive. And like a lot of people were following these like rules. And what COVID essentially did was that people just wanted to see the real you. They wanted to see the real things behind. And you can see a lot of big brands like McDonald's, you look at their page, it's filled with like memes, pretty like ridiculous stuff that has like 20x, 30x more engagement. And you look at like some of these interviews, whether it's like Theo Von or Andrew Schultz, they just seems like they're a bit more unhinged. They're a bit more like out of the boundaries of like what you can say on television or not. And I think people have cut through that bullshit. People want that straight up, like, be honest, let's get real. Let's talk about what are the issues with media industry, movie industry, politics and stuff. So I feel like as people get more pissed off with traditional systems, I think like they would want more organic on information. And I think like YouTube has like in so many ways, it has broken that and stuff. So I just feel like the more, especially now with the rise of AI, right now, I always said this before, I think you want your audience to fall in love with you. And after that, whatever content that you do can kind of like pivot a lot and people will be happy about it. There was a photographer I used to follow, Peter McKinnon, and he was known to do filmmaking and editing tutorials. And he was obsessed with coffee, and he would do some coffee videos. And when he wouldn't post a coffee video, people would be like, why aren't you posting coffee videos? And he would be like, I feel so weird because it's like, this is my passion and people want to watch it and people are asking for it. So I feel like with like the rise of AI and AI agents and that human element, that personal element, I think if more than anything, people should like really double down on their personality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that on the personality side. It's very important to continue to show that in an age where everything else has kind of got airbrushed. I think the traditional media is too airbrushed, it's too edited, it's too pretending to be perfect. So, you know, huge advantage for the live arena who just go live and go off the, you know, fire off the hip and just, you know, are just putting themselves out there. Still question though, the question still remains. I don't think you really got to this part of it, Raheem. Maybe Legendary, you can take it before we move into the next headline. Raheem, you were mentioning AI agents. We're going to get to that in a second. Say I'm hearing this clip from the Rumble founder. I'm thinking, wow, I agree with everything you said. I've got the same ethos as you. Love that you're, you know, prioritizing crypto. What do we take our show and we go onto Rumble? Like, if say in some crazy environment, the market rips, we would go loads bigger, and they would think that, especially if we're a live crypto show, we've got a live crypto audience. They're like, yeah, okay, come over. Do you go? Do you go as a company now trying to build it? Does any content creator listening in go to Rumble now and forego the YouTube audience?
I think you got to experiment and see what works, and it's something we've been doing, right? We started Spaces only, we added video, we added YouTube, we added the clips and shorts. We started doing TikTok as well, and trying to see if the shorts are landing there. I think it's not
the thing is, all of these, just to come in quickly, all of these can be done together. There are certain people though who I'm aware, I think people have gone over and gone exclusive with Rumble, and that's what they want. They want exclusive people to go over. I'm not saying we're in that bracket of people, but I'm just putting out there as a hypothetical. If we were, would you go?
Yeah, I think if it were an exclusive deal, it's difficult. It's difficult to bet against YouTube in the long run, and I think exclusivity also has like different clauses to it. Like you can exclusively maybe live stream there, but can I take the clips, package them up, and put them back on YouTube, and play it in that way? So it would like really depend on the terms. But if it were like, to give you a concrete answer, if it were like fully exclusive, and it means you cannot post any form of content that you derive from the live stream or from the stuff that you do on Rumble somewhere else, then it would be a very hard choice to make. And it would probably make sense if you say like you take a 12 months bet to do that. Either it works out or the payment is so good that you then feel comfortable to go back to YouTube and catch up with that. Although like if you were to do this for a year is a damn long time to be absent from a social media platform that you tried to grow on previously.
Exactly. Okay, I think we need
I
to move
also think from a just like a quick thing, sorry. I think from a financial point, I think like when something like this comes about, it'll be pretty obvious to know, okay, like how many crypto streamers actually exist over there. What's their viewership? Like for them to come and be like, oh, we want you guys, there would be a significant amount of number and viewership they're getting, which is why they think they need to capitalize on that market, right? So I feel like if the time ever comes for anyone watching, I think there will be some data and metrics that you can look at and be like, is it profitable for me to go? And just like what happened with Joe Rogan and Spotify, right? When they wanted him exclusively and stuff. So I feel like when you look at the numbers of what viewers they're getting, what niches they're getting, how that compares to YouTube, I think it'll be a lot more obvious than all of us are thinking right now.
Okay, wonderful point. I wanted to bring up the Rogan thing because I mean, it must be a beautiful deal actually, because he, you know, allegedly kind of exclusive to Spotify. What does that even mean? You can still get all the stuff on YouTube. So I guess
it was exclusive for a bit, and he kind of like
months.
repositioned it where he was like, you know what, I get to put all the shots and stuff. Yeah.
Just how good is that? It's just like, yeah, and I guess that did get a big influx of users at the beginning, and now everything's back to normal. They probably still pay him for continuously posting. Like, what a brilliant deal.
Even WWE is going on Netflix starting January, which is one of the biggest like sports companies in the world. They've been showing on TV for the longest time. So I do think like this whole angle is completely changing as we move forward.
And sorry, I know we only have 5 minutes left, but one final point on that. You've seen it with Mr. Beast as well. He has Beast Games now, which he basically introduced in his latest YouTube video, and is now a full-blown show on Amazon. And because he's structured in that way, I think I saw Mr. Beast posting on X that it was the #1 show in roughly half the countries in the world. So this like top of the funnel, there we go. Top of the funnel, your native audience, and then funnel them into a different partner of yours in that kind. Amazon sharing the list of countries where it is number one on screen right now and scrolling through that. Could also be a very interesting strategy.
Very, very interesting. Okay. Always love the media reflections, the media parts of the news, or the media focused news, especially when it's got this kind of crypto crossover. I'm very, very interested in that. And so we'll keep an eye on that moving forward. As you said, Legendary, we've only got 5 minutes left of the show today. We definitely want to talk about the Virtuals AI agents hitting a $1 billion market cap and the real strength that the AI agents have shown recently in the face of a general market kind of sell off and weakness. So what's your take here? What do we need to know before we head into the holidays?
Absolutely. Couple points on that. Virtuals as the AI launchpad on Base, the market cap of all the agents there, as you have posted, I'm showing this on screen, has ripped past $1 billion. Also significant with that is that if we look at the price of Virtuals itself, that went as high as $3.18, just about when we started, a couple minutes before we started the show, is now currently sitting at $3.09 again. So incredibly impressive price performance, especially against the quote unquote weakness or correction that we've seen with ETH, that we've maybe also seen with some of the other AI agents. And if you break that down on some of the different agents, you actually see a tremendous amount of green and interest. You see Game, which is this infrastructure agent by Virtuals itself, being up 26%, reaching the $250 million market cap. Sorry for that. AI XPT up massively, 320 M there. Vader, which doesn't show up in the list for some reason right now. Vader is up 10%, up to $57 million market cap. That is that AI agent that wants to become the BlackRock of the agentic economy. Even went as high as 70 million. And if you zoom out a bit on that, you can see very, very sustained strength, because on December 20th, it was at 25 mil. And ever since, it's almost tripled up.
Yeah.
So across the entire Virtuals ecosystem, both larger as well as smaller agents are back extremely in an extremely powerful way, which is pretty impressive to see.
Okay. Super summary there of the AI agent side of things. I'm obviously in on some of those trades and have been fairly clued up on it. I think Sammy's probably the most clued up on it. You are also very clued up on it. So what would you like? What's your 2025 outlook for all of these agents and all of these launch pads? Because look, one of the things that happens, kind of the same with NFTs, you have a bunch that come out first. Certain things take a foothold. Now agents are being released like meme coins. People talk about agents. It's like, well, okay, kind of just feels like you're launching a meme coin and hoping that it goes past the bonding curve and that it rips after. That's basically how people behave and interact with meme coins at their launch. So what's the outlook here? How are people supposed to ascertain like real value here, Legendary? What's your perspective when you're looking at all of these coming to market, and many of the more ones are going to come early on next year?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a very tough one as well, because obviously you have this massive influx of agents. You have a couple of launch pads, becomes almost a commodity to launch your agent. You see them very prominently, sometimes also in a very annoying way on the timeline, just basically being spammy in the replies. But if you manage to cut through that noise and actually find the projects that you find interesting, whatever that is, in my case, AI XPT and Vader, which I've been sharing before some of my larger holdings, then the challenge with them is to also verify, is it real what they claim to be? Is, if you take a look at the GitHub, do you have the understanding to look at it and know if that is a LARP or if that's real? And if you don't, I don't have that technical knowledge. Is there someone you can rely on who does that and who looks at that? And I think, for example, Saigar, who is now working on Abstract, is a person who is an incredible expert at all those things and also has shown massive interest in the agentic space. And when he posted that he talked to RXPT, the founder of AI XPT, and said, yeah, he looked at that, it's legit. They went on a call. It's pretty sick what this guy's been working on. That helps me to instill confidence in that particular agent. But I think this is one of the biggest challenges for 2025 if you want to trade in that space, because we pump up right now new agents. We pump them up so violently if it's an interesting concept that basically the agent can go like to 10 mil. And this is when people start to do due diligence. Is it even real? So you have like two options. You either so early that you find that you buy in, and by the time the market starts to do due diligence, you already have taken profits and you're free riding, or you wait it out and wait for someone else to do the due diligence on that and understand if that's real or not, to wait for the market sentiment to play out on that, and then find yourself a later entry point if it's a more long-term bet. And if you look at how volatile this space is, and if you look at, just had the Veda chart up, this thing has bounced between 20 and 50 mil so often enough. For the first time ripped to 17, it's already correcting down again. None of that is going up in a straight line, and gives you enough chances to buy back in. Even if you look at gold right now, if you think that gold is something that's going to stay relevant, Fartcoin had a massive dip as well and bounced back. So while it feels very, very tempting to FOMO into stuff, I'd probably, oh no, I would probably only FOMO into stuff when it's like super, super low market cap, where you're like, you find something on the mill under 100K and like, oh, this could be interesting if the market likes it or if it's real. Then you make a bet on that. But if you want to deploy significant capital into something that's like in an 8 or 9 figure valuation, 8-figure valuation, then you might as well take the time to find a good entry point and educate yourself in the meantime about what the agent actually does and what about that framework is real before you just ape in. And I know we've been going 2 minutes over time, so sorry for my rambling.
No, I like it. I think it's really, really helpful perspective, because there's definitely been a lot of froth in that side of things. There's definitely been a lot of like random stuff, basically a load of random crap being launched, and people running the numbers up just purely on a concept, purely on an idea. And we said it at the beginning, like there's certain things, certain agents being launched, like, this is not impressive. This is an annoying bot in my Twitter comments. Like, it's just an annoying bot. Why is it worth 1 million or 500K or 2 mil or 5 mil? Like, it's just an annoying thing that keeps tweeting stuff that is kind of not even an appropriate response to the thing that I've said. So but I do think, as you say, like, there's a legit, I think the market's starting to appreciate certain aspects more. And again, the big risk is even those things that the market is starting to appreciate, like some of those tokens you just mentioned on virtuals, those teams are still building. There could be phenomenal teams, and we're aware of some people who are really going to go hard in 2025 in this area. Like, they could be displaced. The team could do something dumb, and B, they could be displaced by like Binance deciding to back a different team, or Animoca deciding to like, well, we want to make a play into AI agents, and this is the ones that we're going to back, and then that's going to get the attention. That's going to get some capital. So very, very early space, very risky on some level. Virtuals have done an awesome job, and there's some very, very promising things there. And AXBT, I don't know where the price goes for that, but just as a account to follow, legit, useful, incredible tech. Really cool to see when you can like look at the back end and see the AI like thinking. We kind of showcased that on the show not so long ago. But as you said, Legendary, we have gone over time today. We hope that was a helpful show from a number of angles. And we wish you all a Merry Christmas, guys. That was a fun show. Hope it was helpful. It's been a fun year. We've done a lot, gone a lot further than we might have even expected. And we thank you all very much for joining us on this journey. It's been a crazy 2024. We appreciate all of you in the Twitter Spaces audience. That's where we all started. If you're still there, we are super grateful to you for joining us audio only. And for the people who've then flipped over to either the video on our personal accounts or the video on YouTube, or who tune in later on Apple or Spotify, wherever you are, we appreciate you for being with us live every day, or whether you're catching up with us after. We have a whole host of plans moving forward going in 2025. We hope very much that you'll be there with us for those. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Christmas. and have a wonderful new year. We are allegedly taking a break for the next certain number of days. We're meant to be back Monday, January 6th. Keep an eye on our personal accounts. We'll still be tweeting and yapping around about various things. But in the meantime, have a great break, guys. Happy holidays. Take care. And we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.